Thank you guys for joining us for this briefing of the Critical Labor Coalition. My name is Misty Challey. I'm the Executive Director of the Critical Labor Coalition. And we appreciate your time this morning. I would like to especially thank Krista from the Blue Dogs for organizing this and sending out the information. She has been fantastic and just a great help overall over the last couple of years for me personally. And we appreciate all you guys do to get things done in Washington. We're here today to talk to you about the Critical Labor Coalition and go over some of the issues that we've been working on and see how we can work together now and in the next Congress to get things done. As you'll see on this opening slide, there is a QR code if you want to go to our website, also listed at the bottom, and all of that information will be available at the end of the briefing. So why did we form? And I'm sure all of you have heard around DC and from your constituents about the great labor shortage right now. Because of COVID, there was what people are calling the Great Resignation, which means that in 2021, more than 47 million workers quit their jobs, didn't get laid off, didn't get fired. They quit their jobs in 2021. So that by the end of that year, there were nearly 11 million job openings, more than 4.6 million above the total unemployment level. And you can see on the chart to the right, the number of job openings versus the number of unemployed workers is 5 million. So it's not just a matter of the unemployment rates going down. It's a matter of people not working. So today, there are 3 million fewer Americans participating in the labor force compared to when COVID started. Why is this happening? I mean, we've talked to a lot of different groups, and I'm sure you've all heard different reasons. I think it's a combination of people using their pandemic savings and saving up for that. A lot of people have retired. A lot of people don't have caregiver options. A lot of those caregiver options no longer exist. And also, there's been a shift in jobs, a lot more work from home options and flexibility, which we're looking to promote more flexibility. But a lot of our jobs have to be in person. You can't go to a hotelier or a restaurateur without employees there. So we need those people in person in the workforce. So the Critical Labor Coalition formed. My background is I come from the franchisee community, representing over 23 different franchisee associations, and they all had the same issue. They all were dealing and continue to deal with the labor shortage. So I formed the Critical Labor Coalition in June to find ways to get people to work. And our members include various trade associations, companies, different employers, and any parties that are suffering or whose members are suffering or whose employers are suffering due to the labor shortage. And so the way this kind of panned out is we're looking to target certain communities of workers because there is no silver bullet to help to solve the labor shortage. So we're focusing on different communities, working in bipartisan ways with outside organizations to address these targeted communities, including retirees, second chance workers, guest workers, caregivers, youth, and other entry-level workers. We're finding different ways to incentivize them and get rid of the roadblocks to get them to work. And again, we are looking for bipartisan opportunities and outside organizations. For example, we're working with AARP and other nonprofits on a number of these different communities. So I'm going to pass, well, first I'll show you kind of what we're working on right now. And this is based on our discussions with those outside communities and within those in DC. So for youth and retirees, and you can see that kind of the highlighted topics are the ones that are really gaining traction we're focusing on. For youth and retirees, we're targeting expanding the EITC for older and younger workers. For entry-level workers, we're really focusing on incentives and ways to streamline the Second Chance Worker Program. For guest workers, we're very supportive of the Essential Workers Act and a streamlined refugee asylum work program. And for women and caregivers, we're very supportive of the expansion of child and dependent care incentives to get those that are forced, well, not forced, for those that are caring for their parents or their children or both, give them some relief and let them re-enter the workforce. These are our current members. As you'll see, it's a number of different industries, everybody from Randstad to the Inspire brands, to restaurants and convenience stores and truck stop operators, hotel and lodging. So, we are all inclusive of anybody that wants to help resolve the labor shortage crisis. And with that, I will pass it over to Shannon Mead, who's the Executive Director of Littler Mendelson Workplace Policy Institute, and Dan Real, the Vice President of Government Affairs for the National Restaurant Association.
Thanks so much, Misty. Hi, everyone. Good to be with you today. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time this morning. As Misty said, well-known industry shortage due to a confluence of factors, no silver bullet that's going to solve, for this challenge. But, I think the recruitment retention issues are top of mind to every employer in this country, maybe excluding Amazon, who went on a hiring spree during the COVID pandemic. But for the service sector, this is a continuing and a real issue. I think we can all agree that, immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform is badly needed. But for many employers, attention to the visa worker programs, particularly the H-2s, is badly needed because it is truly a workforce issue. The current program is terribly inadequate. On one end of the scale, you have a very large ag visa H-2A program, a very robust program that has virtually no cap. And then on the other end of that spectrum, you have a rather robust high-skill H-1B visa category. And then in between that, you have scattered some other programs like the H-2B seasonal program, which some in this coalition take advantage of. But as we all know, that cap is continually breached every year, and we are continually going back to the well, talking to you all about extending that cap or trying to get something through appropriations that would, returning worker visas. So it is continually reached. A lot of these H-2B visas go to landscapers. And so, really, there's a lot of others that just are disadvantaged in this program. And then, of course, there's the J-1 visas, which are run by the State Department, which are really intended for, educational and cultural enrichment. And so that's not really a viable option either. So there's really no program to accommodate the service and hospitality sector of the economy. So as we all know, through that gap come, many undocumented workers. And so a visa program is necessary here to really close that gap, level the playing field for restaurants and hospitality and others who so badly need these workers. So essentially how it would work, it was introduced by Congressman Smucker earlier this year. And then insofar as how it would really work is, only employers who operate in counties or metropolitan areas where the unemployment rate is 5% or lower may apply for permits. So the employer has to test the market to demonstrate a need for workers. And then, unlike any other existing visa programs, the H-2C would be fully portable. So there's portability built in so that a worker who receives an H-2C permit would be able to move throughout the economy to another H-2C holder employer. So that kind of creates the secondary market, and people can kind of move around the economy as they need, and employers are able, if it's not a good fit, employer can hire another H-2C worker. As I mentioned, the market-based regulator, there's these visas are capped at 66,000, so they're on par with the H-2B visa, but depending on market conditions, that cap can increase or decrease based on the strength of the economy. So it can move up automatically to 85,000 positions based on where we are. And I think, again, this is a temporary program. So, but here workers would renew their, it's a 3-year visa program, but it could be renewable twice. So there's always sort of this constant steady stream of people moving in and throughout this system. Employers would be required to comply with E-Verify. And so that's an important requirement that's built into this legislation. And there are other good government provisions that are built in here with respect to continuing studies, examining the growth of the economy, the benefits and services, and so on. And there's an electronic tracking system that maintains where workers are moving throughout the economy that very much mirrors the system currently used to track student visa holders already. So we think this is a really good start. Open to your thoughts, to your ideas, but again, something that is badly needed for the service sector, because there is no particular visa program in place that benefits those in this area that are really struggling to find workers. And with that, I'm going to turn to my colleague, Dan Rail, who's been working this bill on Capitol Hill with many of you, and where we are with respect to co-sponsors and looking for Democratic co-sponsor for the bill.
Thanks, Shannon, and good morning, everyone. Appreciate you all being here. As Shannon outlined, let me back up from a restaurant industry standpoint to just talk a little bit about the labor situation. When we survey our members, and it's been true since probably May of last year, the #1 challenge to the industry is finding labor. It's causing a lot of disruption within the industry right now. And some of you, I'm sure, hear this from back home or even see it every day. You have restaurants that are forced now in their hours or be closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. And it's something, when we talk to our members coming out of COVID for kind of where their priorities lie, it is the #1 challenge that we are facing. And really the goal of the legislation, as Shannon was outlining, was to put in place a system that will allow the industry to be able to access a labor pool when it's absolutely necessary to ensure that their operations can really continue at the level that they wanted to. From a Hill standpoint, obviously we're pleased that Mr. Smucker was willing to introduce the legislation. And I think, as Shannon outlined, you'll see that we've worked really hard to try to make this as bipartisan of a product, and something from our perspective, we hope certainly could move as part of, if we were able to find that magic window to do a broader immigration package, it's something that would be able to fit in there. But certainly, from a workforce standpoint, it's something that we would hope, as we get to either lame duck, and I know there's a lot of conversations going on around H-2Bs and ag jobs, other pieces that in looking at the labor situation in this country, we will be able to potentially find an avenue to move it forward, or if necessary, into the next Congress. So we are certainly actively looking for co-sponsors. We'd certainly appreciate all of you taking a a close look at it. And feel free to reach out to either Shannon or myself or to Misty in the coalition if you have any more questions about it. So thank you again.
Thank you, Dan. So we're now going to move on to senior and adult communities and the issues we're targeting there. And I'd like to introduce David Jory, who represents Golden State Opportunity.
Thanks, Misty. And thank you everyone for joining us on the call. I wanted to note again, I'm in Oklahoma City right now for the funeral of one of the co-founders of the Blue Dogs, Congressman Bill Brewster from Oklahoma. And so having worked with the coalition for really since Bill was in it, you guys are an especially important audience. I was asked by a group, a California-based but now going national group that's working in anti-poverty generally, to help reestablish what had been a traditional bipartisan consensus that the earned income tax credit, which was created in 1975 in the Nixon administration, that it's good tax policy and that it deserves our support. The credit is only $500 if you are a worker without children. So it's a relatively modest credit, but the way that it was created in 1975, it excludes any worker between 18 and 24, and it excludes those at 65 and up. So I think the assumptions in 1975 about family support and Social Security benefits, I think we now know are leaving these workers in the lurch, because if you got a high school diploma or whatever and get out and go right to work, you're not eligible for the credit, even at an entry-level job. And the problem with that is that payroll taxes and in some cases income taxes, federal income taxes, will push a person into or deeper into poverty. Our solution is to get rid of those age limits only for the portion of the credit for workers who don't have children. We calculate that would free up, that would incentivize 5 million younger workers and over 2 million seniors who have left the workforce to re-enter it. The earned income credit has been shown in studies by the government, by right and left leading organizations, to be one of the most efficient ways to boost the labor supply. And so that's why this group is focusing on that. So thank you.
Okay. I would just add that, Congresswoman Chu is working on a bill that would do just that. And yes, we are looking for co-sponsors, particularly on Ways and Means to help support that. So thank you, David, for that. I'm now going to hand it over to John Tates, who is the Director of Government Relations for the National Association of Convenience Stores. John, take it away.
Thanks, Misty. And again, thanks to all the staff for joining us this morning. As we talked about, we have been looking for pretty much any and all avenues to get workers back into the workforce here. And one of the areas that I think it's probably accurate to say we're just starting to get into, as opposed to having kind of more of a concrete plan on, is we call second chance workers. These are folks with a criminal record who have served their time, they're out, they're reformed, and they're looking for employment. Some of these folks obviously have some hard time clearing certain background checks and things. So we're trying to find ways to help smooth that transition. We have folks, we've talked to a group called the Second Chance Business Coalition, which is one of the outside groups that Misty mentioned, to try and talk about ways that our groups, our coalition, and our members and such can work with them. So I think with that, it's more of an angle of trying to find ways to make the connections with those people, and find out where those populations are and how to get to them a little easier than some may try. Because I know in a lot of our industries, including the convenience store industry, we have a number of chains who make significant efforts to find people in these kind of populations, and we need a little more extra help with that. I know that there's some legislation out there that would help with, clearing criminal records and things like that, but we're really focused on access right now. We need things that help kind of more immediately, things that can get folks in the door, behind counters, in restaurants, in our stores, as quickly as possible. So this is one avenue we're also pursuing. And again, I said we're just kind of just starting with this one. So if you guys have any thoughts on this population, how we can help these folks get back into the workforce a little more efficiently, we'd be very much open to hearing any thoughts on that. Other than that, I just want to reiterate what everyone else has said. We're just looking for anybody we can get and get them in the door and get them working, get them back to work. So again, thank you for your time.
Thanks, John. And last but certainly not least, we're going to go to ER Anderson, who is the Director of Public Affairs for Randstad.
Thanks, Misty. Morning, everybody. Yeah, I'm ER Anderson. I'm the Director of Public Affairs for Randstad. We're a staffing firm and HR solutions company based in the Netherlands, globally, Atlanta, in the US. And so what we do is we put people to work, both in contingent jobs and permanent positions. We can also take over so that soup to nuts HR recruiting, onboarding, benefits function. So we hear about the challenges in caregiving, the obstacles in that caregiving, is putting up for people going back to work from two sides, from our internal employees and also from the talent that we place with our clients. And we put about 80,000 people a week to work. So what I thought I'd do for this talk is I spoke to several of our branch managers or regional managers or folks who are on the front lines of putting people to work, and sort of glean a little bit about what they're hearing from talent. So this is what I'm giving to you is anecdotally, but some themes did emerge that I'd like to touch on a little bit. First of all, hearing about second job requests. It seems like the primary earner in the home is seeking a second income for back to school time, for holiday work, to allow the caregiver to continue to caregive. We're seeing some requests for special scheduling, specifically I heard a couple of times in my discussions with the folks, scheduling around school activities and school activities. So moms, but both parents are asking for something that looks like 8 to 2, that type of schedule. And so indeed, we're trying to work with our clients to alter times of shifts where possible around, daycare school schedules. And we've been successful with other type of these obstacles to sort of drive our clients to be more flexible. Sometimes when the bus or public transportation schedule doesn't match up with the shifts, we're able to encourage those clients to change it so that folks can get there. Around aging parents, I heard repeatedly examples of workers needing an hour or 2 hours or half day to take an older family member to doctor's appointments. Now, my operators are also telling me they really have not seen too many examples of clients plussing up offerings around around childcare and elder care. But they did say they've noticed attendance policies have become more flexible around COVID. So we're seeing companies, our employers, our clients being sort of more empathetic towards personal situations than maybe they were before. And as we know, flexibility, remote work arrangements for an accountant, a coder, that's one thing, but just not possible for some of the other jobs we hire for, which are warehouse, light industrial, forklift drivers. You got to be there. So that's a little bit more hard on the flexibility. Just a minute or so, Misty, on what Randstad is doing, and I think you'll see that many other best-in-class employers are doing likewise. So Randstad has an employee assistance program through Cigna to help with childcare and elder care. So our Randstad internal employees or temporary employees who are eligible to get on our Cigna plan can call in and get help with caregiving issues. So I got a specific example from a colleague whose parent is dealing with memory issues. And she called into the employee assistance program, and they got her directed to an Alzheimer's specialist in her area. So the employee assistance program is researching, finding solutions, sort of doing cost comparisons in your region to get you that help. And the program can also help our employees understand sort of what you're going to encounter next, be it with the insurance provider or the doctor, or how the health issue will manifest itself. We also have a program we call Rethink. This is specifically a parenting benefit that provides consultation and guidance for parents with children with physical or neurological diversities, and it provides vocational and academic assistance for the children. And then, a lot of people, as we do, we partner with a lot of companies with Bright Horizons for family support offerings. This provides some discounts on childcare, tutoring services, and enrichment programs. And I would add that we have a job skilling and retraining program for women who've been victimized or who need a second chance, and we pay for their childcare. So as Misty said, we're a new coalition, and we really haven't landed on a policy solution in this area yet. I would say, I think for all of us who are multi-state employers, a fragmented approach to, say, family leave is a problem. So really that state by state look is not so great for us. But we're not seeing a bill at the federal level that gets at it. And I think the key thing, as we've all said, is we want a bipartisan approach. I'm not sure if it's some combination of increased child tax credits. Is it incentives for flexibility? Is it dependent care tax credit? Somehow growing the caregiving system, growing that workforce, and encouraging community or home-based care. So I want to stress again, as we all have, that we're looking for a bipartisan approach that can pass. I've seen some good ideas. I've seen some, meh ideas. And again, we're a new group. We haven't weighed in on any of these, but we really want to see how we can work together and where your bosses are coming from on some of these caregiving issues. So I hope that we can continue this dialogue. Thanks, Misty.
Thanks, ER. So just to add on that, we have reached out just on this issue alone to the YWCA and the Boys and Girls Clubs. We are actually meeting with a Humanity Forward, if you've all heard of them, another bipartisan group. So we really want to work with all interested parties to get these things done. I think everybody on this call wants to introduce something that actually has a chance of passing. So I sense your frustration. I know our frustration. So let's get something done here. Thank you, ER. And just to wrap things up, this is an ad that was published in the Hill newspaper during Labor Day week. I think that says it all, is that if every unemployed person in the country found a job, we'd still have 5 million unfilled jobs. And we're looking to those communities below, listed below, and others. This group is ever changing. As ER mentioned, we are just a couple of months old, but we are looking for any and all solutions to help solve the labor shortage. We need your help. We need everybody to work together on this, to remove the roadblocks to reentry, to incentivize employers and potential employees to join the workforce, and to get people back to work. So with that, we'll take questions. And if you have any questions, and there, my email, the phone number, the link and the QR code to the website are there. And we really just look forward to working with you on helping get people back to work. So again, thank you for your time. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box or just unmute yourself. I think we'll all be able to answer your questions. Any questions? I
actually had a quick question. First off, really appreciate all of the solutions that you guys put together. If you could send it to me separately, I can get it out to everyone who attended as well. But I was curious if your group has done any thought work on what changed exactly. Was the labor shortage an issue before the pandemic? Or is it just that the pandemic and more care work that was necessary through it exacerbated things? I guess I'm curious about why is this such an acute shortage now, when we weren't hearing about it so much pre-COVID?
Well, I could start that off, and whoever wants to chime in. I do think there was, and we have some data showing, you know, the growth of the workforce. There was an issue prior to the pandemic, and this just exacerbated it. And I think the reasons, you know, everybody's looking for the reasons, but I personally think that the pandemic shifted some people's mindsets. They just said, okay, I'm going to retire early. I'm done. Or, okay, well, I'm home with my kids and I can't find anybody to watch them now. I'll just stay home with them. And so I think, you know, okay, well, I like this working from home. I'm just going to find a job that will, you know, let me work from home. I think it just switched people's mindsets in what they think about working. Anyone else?
I think.
Hey, Misty, it's Dan. Oh, go ahead, Shannon.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Dan. I think Dan and I probably are going to say the same thing, maybe, but I can speak to, you know, specifically to statistics from the restaurant food service industry, which is where, you know, I was before here, but recruitment retention was always number one. But I would also say that for collectively for everyone, every industry, every employer on this call, you know, there's a continuing and a widening skills gap problem in this country. And I mean, that obviously precedes COVID. And I think to your point, it has been exacerbated by COVID. But, you know, with advances in artificial intelligence, robotics, automation, things that we call future of work, you know, as those are accelerating, there's a huge job displacement, and there's a huge amount of people within the workforce that need to be so-called upskilled, reskilled, because there's a number of open positions and not enough Americans to take those jobs. Those statistics regularly are coming out from the Department of Labor. So there's a huge skills gap in this country that needs to be addressed. And then this continuing labor shortage issue within the service sector. I mean, those two things combined are presenting enormous challenges in this significant issue going forward. The labor force participation among women, as DR, you know, referenced in her comments, that's continuing. That's probably going to continue. So looking at incentives for the private sector to kind of shore up on those things, I think is critically important. Dan, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Excuse me. I was just going to confirm what the question was, in that prior to COVID, the number one challenge in our operator survey was finding and retaining employees. Obviously, COVID became the number one concern. And when you got to January of 2021, finding and retaining employees was 7% in that survey as the number one business challenge. And that doubled every month, as you remember, probably, Shannon, until we got to April, May, where it was at 70%. So that is, you know, COVID exacerbated, to I think everyone's point, some of these challenges. We also are uniquely an industry that when governors shut down indoor dining, unfortunately had to lay off people. So it's always been a challenge. It's probably the greatest challenge it's ever been right now. But, you know, I think the need for a lot of what we're talking about isn't something that's, you know, just to kind of clear a backlog of COVID. It's something that's going to be necessary for the economy as a whole going forward.
Yep. Any other questions? Well, again, thank you for your time, for all of you on the call. Krista, I will send you this PowerPoint. Feel free to forward it on. And I just want to say, you know, we really look forward to working with you all. throughout the rest of this session and into next session to get some things done. So feel free to reach out to me. We would love to come. I'm happy to set up a virtual or in-person meeting, whatever you need. And again, thank you for your time.